what's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, and I recently told a story about how I met Slash and asked if he wanted more stories, and there was a resounding answer of yes to more stories, and I have a bunch of them. But since I'm going to tell another one, I thought it'd be great to talk about how I started to learn guitar. A lot of people ask me that. It's one of the most common questions I get, and I'm going to tell more stories about meeting Tenacious D. I taught Jason Statham guitar. I went to high school with Pedro Pascal. I got a career on YouTube, how that started. I've been attacked on stage. I have some really embarrassing stories from when I used to gig, different bands I've played in. So many different stories through my illustrious career over the last 30 years. So let me know in the comments others out of those that you'd like to hear next. But this one is just going to be the story of me learning guitar because I think a lot of people can relate to it because I was not a kid in a musical family. You know, my parents were not musicians. I wasn't this kid that aced music lessons as a kid or had perfect pitch where, you know, adults were saying, wow, you really need to put your son into music lessons. He's gifted. And none of that. I had no idea even by the time, you know, I was a junior in high school, had no musical ability. So I wasn't even someone as a little kid that started to play music. Now with that, I've always been creative. I was a good artist, you know, or above average visual artist. I was always above average when it came to creative writing, anything in the more arts side of thing. I excelled more than like science and math and history and reading and all that. So I always did better in more artistic things. But I was one of those people, and you may think that this as well, that music, to be able to play music, you need to have some special magic power or magic gift. I can still remember before I played guitar, watching people play guitar and thinking that, oh my gosh, they have this magic power that I don't have. And wow, what would it be like to have that magic power? I've thought that same feeling when I went to concerts. You know, my dad was always a big rock fan, so there was classic rock playing in the house, but no, you know, musical instruments. My dad had a guitar lying around, but he was not, you know, a very proficient guitar player. He knew a couple of beginner chords and just had a guitar there. But by no means was I ever thinking that my destiny would be to play music or to teach music. Absolutely none whatsoever. One super strong, vivid memory I have, which could have been about a year or two before I actually started to play guitar, was being at the beach. I grew up in Southern California, Orange County, Newport Beach, California. I remember going to the beach. I was probably, let's say I was 15 years old, and I remember two guys on the beach with their acoustic guitars, and they were jamming blues. One guy was playing the 12-bar blues rhythm, the other guy was soloing, and then they'd switch. The other guy would go to rhythm, the other guy would go to soloing, and I was just mesmerized, thinking, what is this magic? You know, I can't believe someone can do something so amazing. So I was always moved by it. I saw great bands growing up. You know, I saw Tom Petty. You know, my dad took me to a bunch of different really cool rock concerts. But one that stood out when I was probably like 8 or 9 years old was Tom Petty. But I saw a lot of others. Billy Idol. You know, I saw rock concerts. I saw pop concerts. I saw Michael Jackson in concert. I saw the band Chicago, Randy Newman. I saw James Taylor, Crosby, Stills and Nash. You know, obviously it was my dad taking me, so it was his taste. It didn't always cross over with my taste, but I always felt a power and magic watching live music and thinking that I could never do it. So cut to the summer before my senior year of high school. So I'm already almost 18 years old, had never thought about playing guitar. Although I will go back to, I got my first guitar when I was 13 years old in 8th grade. And my dad took me to the music shop that everyone did back then, before the internet, before guys like me existed to teach you in an easy way through the internet. We would go into the guitar shop and take these, you know, standard guitar lessons with a guitar teacher. So I did get a guitar when I was 13, and the guitar teacher was kind of like a kind of disgruntled, burned out musician that was probably kind of bitter that he was having to teach guitar instead of be a rock star. I never felt that way about myself as a teacher, but some people do feel that way. I've seen them now, even now in my life later, as this guy that teaches on YouTube. I've still seen that kind of personality of people that are bitter. They don't want to teach. And then even some people that got big on YouTube that wanted to try and transition into being a performing artist instead of a teacher, which I've never thought of myself that way either, because I have this amazing opportunity to talk to an audience and help them, maybe add some positivity to their life and share the joy I have of music with them. So I took a few lessons when I was 13. The teacher took no interest in me. He wasn't like, what bands do you like? What kind of, do you like rock music? Do you like this or that? Nothing. He had no interest in me whatsoever. And he just pulled out the book. At the time, it was called the Mel Bay method, which was literally reading sheet music, not even a power chord or any kind of beginner riff to get me excited. Nothing at all. Just straight into reading the treble clef in music and playing stuff like Mary Had a Little Lamb. I hated it. It was super boring, tedious, and difficult. And I think it was the teacher. Now, I'm only 13 years old, so I don't know that. I have no reference point. Now I'm me who teaches, as a career. But at that point, I didn't know that it was the teacher that wasn't, stimulating my excitement about it or finding a way to get my fingers on it and have fun with it right away. No, it was the method. Reading the sheet music, difficult, nothing fun. Mary Had a Little Lamb, not Iron Man, not Smoke on the Water, nothing like that. And so I lasted 3 lessons, and I was like so many other kids at that time in my generation that were like, okay, it's not for me. I don't have the gift. I'm not musical. It's boring. I was playing sports. I'd rather do that. So I quit. So that guitar just lied there for another 5 years, and I never touched a guitar pretty much ever again until now we get to the summer before my senior year of high school. I saw Santana in concert. So once again, I'm a big music fan. I watched MTV. I had a big music collection, classic rock. Everything I listen to is classic rock now, but at the time, newer, like Guns N' Roses, The Police, Tom Petty, some hair rock, all that kind of stuff. Whatever was popular at the time, I was listening to it. So I was really into music, but just thought music playing was for special talent that I did not have. So I saw Santana, and this is still before the internet, so you don't have a exposure to just finding your own things. You're kind of fed through pop culture what to listen to and what to like. So I saw Santana. This would have been probably 1992, 91, 92. Sometimes my timelines get messed up. But saw Santana, and there was a band that opened for Santana that I had never heard of and never heard before in my life. And they were younger. They were probably only about, let's say, 5 to 10 years older than me. Realistically, probably 5 to 6 years older than me. And they were playing more classic rock style with improvisation, like Allman Brothers style, Grateful Dead style, jam band basically. But the term jam band did not exist yet, and it was the band Blues Traveler, and John Popper on harmonica. I'd never heard anyone play harmonica like that. I'd never heard a younger band that wasn't like already classic rock ripping long improvised solos and playing soulful blues rock that was not made for MTV or mainstream radio even. And it made such an impression on me. I was so blown away that they only had 2 albums out. I immediately bought both albums, and I listened to them that whole summer, just nonstop, CD player in my car. And to date myself, the CD player in my car was one of those CD players where the front, you can pull the front out so your radio doesn't get stolen. Just to date myself here, I'm Gen X. A lot of my Gen Xers out there, shout out. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a big deal to have a good car stereo and to not have it get stolen. And then also your book of CDs. It was very important, to be able to have all your CDs ready to play in your car. That was like our our own sanctuary was, if we were lucky enough to have a car and our stereo, that was where we lived our truest lives, as teenagers in the 90s. And so I listened to Blues Traveler that entire summer, and I was just so blown away and moved by it all. And one of my other stories is I ended up getting to play with Blues Traveler many years later and kind of fulfill that high school fantasy of mine. So that is another story I'd love to tell, but that will be for a later time, since this is kind of my guitar origin story, right? So because I was so moved by that kind of summer and getting a little older, getting some of my own opinions and becoming, a young adult, I guess you could say, I thought to myself, well, I'll go buy a harmonica because they're cheap. They were $20 at the time, and no one has to know I even bought a harmonica. I can just noodle around on one just to see what it feels like, because I was kind of so into Blues Traveler at that moment in time. And so I bought a cheap harmonica and was just noodling around, had no idea what I was doing. And I just accidentally did one of those blues bends on it, not knowing what I was doing, not knowing anything about keys or music theory or anything at all. But I got a couple of little licks just naturally by messing around on it, just, fell in to a couple of really cool sounding blues licks. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is like magic. I am finding the piece of that magic that I'm referring to, or was referring to earlier. So then I had a couple of really good friends who I'm still dear friends with, really good friends that could already play guitar pretty well. And I used to get so jealous and FOMO, I think would be a good way to describe it, when a couple of my friends would actually play guitar, or they had formed bands in high school. And the high school, in my high school, maybe once a month, a band would play during lunch on the quad. And I used to just, be so excited for those moments watching bands play during high school. And when we got a little later, like junior and senior year of high school, a couple of my friends were already playing in bands and playing little gigs and stuff. And that was just something that seemed so amazing and cool to me. And so as I got a few harmonica licks down, I was finally brave enough to try and play harmonica with one of my friends. Shout out Brian Rashap, still friends with him to this day. My other friend Dave Rafalovich, another dear friend still to this day. They played a blues for me, and I could play a couple of licks, and they were like, wow, that sounds actually pretty good. And so that was the start of me, instead of just watching my friends play, actually starting to get involved and playing with them. I wasn't great by any means, but it was enough to be able to play on a song or two, or when we were all getting together on the weekends, be able to jam, not just watch, but also participate. And through that, I just kind of forced my way into sitting in and being a part of those bands that my high school friends were in. We all just kind of mishmashed, and there was never really one specific band. It was like a bunch of guys that started playing music, and we would jam, we'd put little things together for the lunchtime band performances and all that. And so I got to get involved with that. I tried to sing, and I've never been a good singer, and back then I was terrible. My ear's a little better now, so many years later, over 30 years later, but I thought, I can be the singer and play some harmonica because I don't have to learn anything too hard. But through that experience, those same two friends and other friends as well, they, just because we're sitting around and guitars were lying around, I told my friend, hey, show me one chord. That way when I show up and people are just sitting around not doing anything, I can go and play one chord. And if I go to a friend's house who has a guitar, or I go into a guitar center, which was like a magical place to me as well, if I could go in there and grab a guitar and just play one chord to test the guitar out, like it was D major. And so basically I could just play that D chord, and the more I did it, the more easier it became. And it was just one chord, literally one chord. And so then I told my friend, and once again, this wasn't a teacher that I was intimidated by, it was one of my best friends. So I felt comfortable, and that's another part of the way that I teach guitar, is to try and make the student feel comfortable. like a friend, and then hopefully become a friend. And hopefully I'm a friend to some of you guys out there. But so then I told Brian, okay, show me a second chord. That way now I can like switch two chords together and it sounds kind of cool. I was like, oh my God, A to D. I've heard that. That has a familiar sound. Or like taking the D chord and going, adding the little pinky by accident. Just how I found my first harmonica note by accident. Added my pinky to the D chord. And I was like, that's from Stairway to Heaven. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Show me a third chord. Show me a fourth chord. But I'm never going to be a guitar player, but show me a fifth chord. Now I have the 5 easy basic chords. Okay, I'm not going to be a musician, but this is really fun, strumming the chords. But, you know, I could never do bar chords. That's way too hard. That's for a real guitar player. All right, just show it to me. I know it's going to be hard. Oh, okay. I can't make a bar chord sound good, but I know what it is. All of a sudden it started sounding better and better. Now I can play bar chords, all on acoustic. All right, but I'm never going to play like lead guitar or learn scales or anything like that. That's going to be way too hard. That's like someone special has to be able to do that. But anyway, show me the, Blues Traveler reference. But anyway, show me just one little lick or scale. Oh, the minor pentatonic? Wow, that's really hard. But now I know it. But I'm never going to be a lead guitar player. All right, show me a lick. But I'll never be a lead guitar player. Okay, show me 2 licks. But, you know, I'll never go beyond that. All right, show me a third lick. All right, show me the other scale. Okay, but when I hear the Allman Brothers do that, what's that? Oh, well, that's this and that. And so it was just this really slow, gradual evolution of me having fun. I had no goals of becoming a musician at all at this point, but I became obsessed with it. And out there, I've said it over the years, but if you can get over that first hump where you just learn the basic open chords, maybe one open pentatonic scale, maybe just start to play the bar chords. When you just get over that first little hump of all that kind of stuff you have to do where you get some calluses, you get a little hand strength, you can play millions of your favorite songs, and it's just such a exciting feeling, and there's so much joy and happiness you can get from being able to play one of your favorite band's songs. And a lot of them are easy. Of course, there's songs that are hard out there too. But you can really start with that first hump and play tons of your favorite stuff. And it's just fun. It makes your life, it enriches your life. It makes your life better. And so that's how I started, by just having fun with it and my friends showing me stuff. And that was my whole senior year of high school. I just played guitar all day, every day. You know, I would think about getting home from school and getting to grab my guitar and play it. I mean, that's how excited I was. And with no goals of becoming a musician, though, just purely because I loved it and I realized it wasn't as hard as I thought, and that it was so fun to play a Tom Petty song or to play a Blues Traveler song, because that's who I loved so much at the time, or learn an Allman Brothers song. It was just an absolute thrill, and the excitement, you know, has lasted now over 30 years. Where I just kept doing the same thing I started with, which was learn a little new thing and add it to the arsenal. Learn a little new thing, add it to the arsenal. My younger brother, who's 7 years younger than me, Zach, around the same time, senior year of high school, and so he's younger, you know, he's like 10 or 11 years old, my mom takes him to a guitar store to actually take guitar lessons, unrelated to my passion and interest. He wanted to start learning guitar the old-fashioned way. And since I could already play chords and a little bit of scales, and I could play a little bit at this point, I asked my mom to take me to those same lessons that my brother was taking, because now that I could play a bit, it wouldn't be as intimidating, and I was curious if I could just get better with a real guitar teacher. And so that guitar teacher name was Al. And I took about 3 months of guitar lessons, and he taught me some Beatles, some Neil Young, some Eagles, just like kind of like classic rock acoustic. It was all acoustic, and it got me a lot farther because now I was really passionate about it, and he was a better teacher, and so he kind of got me going. And so then I went to college to study film, because I was never going to try and do music for a living. I wasn't good enough. I didn't know how to read music. It was just something I loved to do, and I got a lot of pleasure out of it, but it wasn't something that I ever thought would be my calling in life. It was something I always thought would be this great hobby that I loved to do. And so when I went away to college and I was a film major, one thing is I immediately grabbed on and hung out with all the music people at my college, the music majors, anyone that could play guitar. Once again, just like in high school, I just wanted to play music and learn from them to get better because it just became my absolute obsession. And so I just kept playing. And then I heard about, and I was still a film major, but then I heard about this great guitar teacher at the college named Chris Sherlin, who now has a YouTube channel that I helped him start, Curious Guitarist. Shout out to Chris Sherlin, who's an amazing teacher. Basically, I started hearing about this amazing teacher, and it wasn't like, oh, I want to be a music major now. Not at all. It was like, wow, I want to find this great teacher because I just want to keep getting better. I just love playing so much, and I'm put a lot of time into it now. I play all day, every day, and if I find this great teacher I'm hearing about, I'll get better even quicker, you know? But I'll still be a film major and pursue video production, film-making, you know, that's like a career path per se, like cameraman or gaffer, cinematographer, writing, directing, producing, you know, there's just all these different things in the field of film to me that, you know, seemed like where I should put my career paths into, and then just music would be my fun thing that I was passionate about. So I found Chris Sherlin. He was an amazing guitar teacher. And once we connected, then I really started to explode on the guitar because I had all this foundation already, and he was a great teacher, and you know, really found a way to connect with me and communicate it to me, the information. And so next thing I know, all I'm doing is playing all day, taking a lesson with him, and then using the stuff the whole week that I learned from him and working on it every single day. And then after I practiced it all, then I was jamming with people, jamming at night with different musicians. And it basically was all I was doing. The film major stuff was literally I would go to a class, and then as soon as class was over, I would grab my guitar and play. I have people from college that relate stories back to me now. Any party, any hangout, anywhere during my college time, all they can do is remember me with a guitar in my hands. But I think what's interesting is I didn't even get my first electric guitar till my second year of college. So I was already, 19, almost 20 years old before I ever even touched an electric guitar. And then by the time I got the electric guitar, I formed a college band called Steamroller, and we were doing the old jam band thing. Jam band didn't exist yet. And so the next thing I know, it's all I'm doing. And about halfway through college, I switched to a music major. And my parents were not happy about it, but I did it anyway. And they asked, well, what can you do for a job or for a living? And I said, well, obviously, everyone's dream is to make it big in music, be in a famous band, be a rock star, all that stuff. Everyone has that dream, or most people playing a guitar fantasize about that. But what I saw from Chris Sherlin, my teacher, is that he was not a famous rock star, but he made a living through music by teaching guitar lessons during the day at the college. Then he played in a professional cover band. Then he played in an original band for a passion. And then he also did studio work and then taught private lessons outside of the college. He had his own house that he rented. He had this, cute girlfriend, tons of gigs, made a very comfortable living in the 90s with a guitar. And so I told my parents, well, I can try and do that, use that as my template for making a living, as I, of course, try and make it bigger and bigger in music. So they weren't too excited about it, but I did that. I ended up getting a degree in music, and then Chris Sherlin left. This was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Chris Sherlin got a better gig in Denver, Colorado, and he left Santa Fe. And because of that and how much I had excelled in a short period of time, he actually got me an audition for his working cover band that paid a very decent amount of money for someone my age. He got me an audition. I got the gig. I graduated college. I stayed in Santa Fe for a couple years and started trying to teach guitar and find students. And I got a job at a music store and, got other gigs and kind of worked my way into this little, big fish in a little pond kind of vibe, but next thing I know, I am now making my living playing music. And that was 1997. And then from 1997 to today in 2025, I have never not done music. And obviously it'll be a different story about how YouTube happened for me. But I'd already, by the time my YouTube career kind of accidentally took off, by the time that had happened, I'd already been basically a professional musician and professional one-on-one guitar teacher, including elementary school music teaching, which I fell into that as well. I'd had a good decade where I was basically a professional musician and guitar teacher before YouTube happened for me. So that'll be another story. But the main takeaway, and this has been a really long story, if you made it this far, I appreciate you listening to me. But the main takeaway is if you're just beginning to learn an instrument, just know that I was a beginner who never thought he would do music for a living. I just did it for fun. But the best method for me was to learn one little device, like one chord, one riff, one lick, one scale. But then I kept stacking those little concepts, just one little tiny little thing at a time without thinking about the big picture, not thinking about becoming a professional musician, just learned one little concept at a time. And now it's been over 30 years and I'm here, helping other people hopefully go on that same journey. And it's been a great calling that found me. And I'm super grateful to you guys, especially if you made it this far in the video. Hopefully you can relate to it as well. I really appreciate you so much helping me kind of make my dreams come true. And I will say, being here as a YouTuber didn't exist when I was fantasizing about a career in music. I couldn't even fantasize this because it didn't exist. But it ended up being way better for me personally and my personality. This is way better than being a rock star in a famous band or anything like that. There isn't anything I'd rather do. I actually do my dream job for a living, and I'm still not sick of it, and you guys make that possible. So thank you. So once again, if you have made it this far, let me know in the comments the other stories. I think the natural one to put out next is how my YouTube career started. But like I mentioned, I did actually go to high school with Pedro Pascal, and I have an amazing inspirational story about that. I have hung out and more than once with Jack Black and Tenacious D, and Jack Black was one of my heroes, especially after School of Rock came out, because I was doing that for real when School of Rock came out. And I've taught famous people like Jason Statham. I don't think I've ever talked about that in a video. I'm in a movie. I am in a movie too. And then I also have amazing stories from just being a musician, like getting attacked on stage, super embarrassing stories, super epic stories. I opened for Aerosmith in a band before YouTube happened for me and played in front of 50,000 people. So I did have a very full kind of career just as a musician before this happened. So let me know in the comments below. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you in another one of these fireside chats very soon, hopefully. Thanks again.